Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Transformational Talks with Coach BJ Ask the Expert series. Come on in so I can introduce this fabulous guest we're going to have tonight. So come on in. We're going to wait for a little bit. And as you come in, go ahead and let us know that you are here. As you guys come on in, let us know that you are here in the comments. Say hello.
Hello, everybody. I know y'all are going to be saying hello to us, but I'll go ahead and say hi to y'all.
Absolutely. We want to thank you guys for joining. Good evening, Lee. Oh my God. So excited about this topic as well, Lee. We are both so excited about it. Everybody come on in. And as you guys are coming on in to the live, go ahead and share this live with someone who you believe that can benefit from our topic tonight, which is going to be co-parenting, reality, struggles, and strategies. Good evening, Z. Thank you for joining.
Hi, Z.
And so for those of you who believe will benefit, go ahead and please share this live with them tonight. And again, even if you're not a single parent or co-parenting at this time, go ahead and still, come on this live and just share, because again, it could be someone that could be experiencing this. And you want to be able to say, you know what, I remember Dr. Christina Grange coming on and talking about this. And here are some of the things that she said, and it was just really great. So again, even if this topic doesn't impact you, it still could be something where you could be a light and you could help someone deal with this particular topic. So thank you for joining. I see more people are coming on. If you wish to say good evening, go ahead and let us know that you are here before we get started. And as you guys come on in and let us know that you're here, I'll go ahead and let you guys know that, again, our topic tonight is co-parenting, reality, struggles, and strategies. And so for those of you who are joining us for the first time, Ask the Expert was created for professionals to come on and talk and share their knowledge, gifts, and expertise in these specific industries and specific topics that really impact us all at some point or another. Or again, even if it doesn't impact us directly, there's someone we can definitely help by providing this knowledge and the tools and the information that is provided on these live talks. And we're hoping that, these talks will help someone overcome or be inspired or learn something that will help them move forward in their journey through this journey called life. So we definitely want to be a blessing on this platform. So as you guys still come in, hello, Mom. Thank you for joining. I see some other people that are here as well. Go ahead and let us know that you're here this evening as we're opening up everything. And so before we get started, we want to ask you guys to go ahead and get your journals out and notebooks, because as always, my guests, they share some great information, some great tools for you to take away and really be able to deal with these particular situations. And, this topic specifically, and a lot of topics that I like to do on Ask the Expert and Transformational Talks with Coach BJ are topics that people really don't want to necessarily talk about. Or again, is some of those specific situations that people deal with in silence. So we want to make sure that we are bringing these particular topics to the forefront. So again, we can help you guys through, these particular journeys. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest. Good evening, Auntie. Thank you for joining. Our special guest tonight is psychologist and professor, Dr. Christina Grange. Christina and I actually know each other from high school, and we recently reconnected personally as we planned a celebration for one of our dear friends who recently got married. So that was really fun, and we enjoyed just, having that time together. So we reconnected on that last year. So before we get into our topic, I want to share a little bit about Christina. Dr. Christina Grange is a clinical psychologist and owner of the Firm Center Life, Atlanta, Georgia. She is also an associate professor of psychology at Clayton State University. Her clinical training focuses on the well-being and optimal development of young people in the context of their families. And recent research and clinical work have evolved to focus on how to best support African-American unmarried parents working to successfully co-parent their child or children. A recent writing related to that work is featured by the National Institution for Diversity. And Dr. Grange received her undergraduate and master's degree from Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, better known as FAMU. And prior to receiving her PhD from Virginia Commonwealth University, she completed pre-doctoral training at the University of Illinois, Chicago, and her postdoctoral training at the University of Georgia's Center for Family Research. These experiences combined to provide a unique perspective for how to use, research, and adapt related resources to better serve diverse family structures and promote the psychological wellness of our communities. So, without further ado, I would love to introduce our special guest for tonight, Dr. Christina Grange. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Coach BJ. Thank you for creating this space and for sharing it with us as presenters or as the recipients of the information. I have been now on both sides, but I've really valued what previous folks have shared. And it's just amazing to think about the fact that we are always growing. There is always an opportunity to learn. And I'm coming to you today as those things that you said in terms of that training, also as a mother, and I would like to say as an evolving co-parent, somebody who didn't expect to be a co-parent, right? I didn't really know what that was either. We're kind of socialized to think that parenting is going to happen one way. And I'm thankful that my journey has brought me to this place where I can talk about an additional way that people can parent in addition to the ways that we normally talk about. So I'm glad to be here to contribute and help people think about the possibilities while also acknowledging some of the challenges of co-parenting. So, like I said, I am a proud mom of a 7-year-old. And when she was about a year old, this concept, this life transition that I was going to was brought to me by my goddaughter. And she actually said to me, Auntie Chris, are you going to be a single mom? I hadn't really thought about it. And I had to think to myself. It really helped me challenge a little bit about who I was as a mom, who I was as a parent, because I wasn't married. So she was trying to figure it out, and she had every right to try to figure it out. And I'm glad that she asked me that question. And so I realized, based on what was going on in my life at that time, that I was not actually going to be a single mom, but I was going to be an unmarried mom for sure, right? That was the reality of my life at that time. And I would say that still is the reality, which is why as we go into the weekend, it's so interesting. And I'm glad that I found out that Sunday, this coming Sunday, which I think is going to be March 21st, is actually a day to celebrate, that's been recognized, to celebrate single parents. So I know parents who are working hard, mothers as well as fathers who have primary responsibility for their children with limited kind of input from an additional biological parent. They may have a step parent or grandparents involved, but the other biological parent isn't involved, and probably not a step parent if they're still identifying as a single parent. And so I want to let y'all know that's happening this weekend. This weekend on Sunday is a day to celebrate single parents and the work that they do, because that is hard work. We know that parenting, period, in any circumstance, is a huge responsibility. Parenting without the support and having to help your child understand why that other parent, that other biological parent isn't there, is very difficult as well. So kudos to my folks who are identifying as single parents and are doing that work. I am here recognizing and honoring the fact that everybody's not living that particular single parenting journey, right? And so what I find and what scholars are beginning to talk about, and we're beginning to talk about gradually in communities, is the fact that people kind of think about either you're a married mom or you're like a single mom parenting alone. If you're a married mom, it's assumed, not always the case, but it's assumed that, or if you're a married parent, it's assumed that the other parent is helping, right? In a traditional sense. And if you're a single parent, it kind of assumes that the other parent isn't helping. So I love the opportunity to give voice to the fact that there is something in between. We do not live in these dichotomies of either you're this or you're that. There's a realm in between that is co-parenting. And that's what today we're going to chat about a little bit, because there are some realities about co-parenting that can be hard, but there are also some strategies that can be helpful. So we're going to kind of take that, and we know that life goes that way. Things can be hard and good at the same time. So when we think about single parenting and co-parenting and all that, I'm curious to know what are the words that have been used in your lives or in your families when there are two people who are parenting together to some degree, even if it's not a 50-50 split, two people who are parenting together, but they're not married. They're not romantically involved and they're not married. Right? They're not romantically involved in any way and they're not actually, so obviously they're not married. I'm curious, I'm introducing the term co-parenting, but prior to now, what would that have been called? If that's you and you're raising a child with some degree of support from the other parent, but you're not romantically involved, how do y'all reference that other parent? How is your relationship process referenced? That's something to kind of think about. It's interesting because in our culture, our government entities like, for example, the Census Bureau or the CDC, they have ways of categorizing us. Single parent, household, blended family, non-traditional family, adopted family. And these are things that are done to kind of understand family structure. And a lot of times it's because of economics, right? So me, I identify as a single parent household. I am a single parent household. And I want all the tax benefits that are due to me for being, thank you so much, Miss Browning. Thank you. She says there were no terms that were positive. Thank you for sharing that. And I didn't experience any terms either because, of course, single parenting has a stigma associated with it, even though it should not, because there's nothing wrong with being a single parent. So we have these ways of kind of categorizing families. And so what I was saying was that I identify as a single parent household. And the reason that I do that is because that has tax implications, right? There are implications for who is head of the household. And I want the people who need to know to understand that I am the head of my household and I'm the only person at this time contributing to my household. So I do identify as a single family or single parent, I should say, household. That is a structural thing. As far as the process, I am thankful to be involved in a co-parenting process where that other person, my daughter's dad, shows up and we have evolved to the point where that is a generally healthy relationship for our daughter, right? But that's a process that so far is not formally recognized. And there are a lot of different reasons for that. I think a lot of it economic, but I think it's important to acknowledge because by not naming the process of co-parenting, which is where you and another person share responsibility for raising a child together, usually after you've been romantically involved to some degree, by not naming the process, we unfortunately in our culture write out the other person or eliminate them from the narrative in which our child is being raised. So that's one reason that I'm an advocate. And that oftentimes happens with men being written out of the story, but it happens with women too. So something to consider is where are you on the spectrum of co-parenting? It could be 50-50, talking all the time, collaborating, or it could be, I respect you, you do your thing, I do mine, but we're both in the game. And that's what I'm here to acknowledge is that there's a place for us to respect that oftentimes both parents are in the game to same or different degrees. And we'll talk about that more. So single parenting is indeed a process of sharing the responsibility of raising a child. And I acknowledge that's not always done equally. However, there are situations where it's not necessarily a good idea to co-parent, Co-parenting is the process of sharing responsibility. So there are some situations where even though I'm promoting this, really, it might not be a good idea. Some of those situations are wherein the parents may have recently separated and they aren't doing a good job of communicating and any interaction they have is unhealthy. that might not be a great situation for a child. And so that ideal co-parenting situation might not be able to happen for a time period. There may also be a situation where there's domestic abuse, be it physical or verbal. That might also impact the degree to which healthy collaboration, which is involved in co-parenting, is able to happen. There may also, as a third example, be a situation where the other parent is physically or mentally unable to make a contribution that would enhance the quality of the child's life. And even though we want that to happen because children are well served by having all the people in their lives pour into them, it might not be able to happen until that person's able to resolve their mental health or physical health issues. So just keeping that in mind, I know that there are situations where single parenting is absolutely necessary. The goal is to also add some options and to recognize the spectrum that exists. So if you guys think of any other situations where co-parenting might not be good for this particular season in a family's life, feel free to give some examples, because I think that's important to acknowledge. There is no gold standard in parenting. There are only there's no official way to do it in terms of gold standards, right? There are people working together doing the best that they can. I see the question, what are your thoughts about co-parents that are not seeking reconciliation, but still having sex? That is a very important question. I would encourage people to think about, what does that look like from the child's perspective? I know it happens. I'm not here to judge y'all. Folks get their needs met. But the important question that I would ask as a child psychologist specifically is, what does that mean from the perspective of the child? And I think if you guys can answer that in a healthy way, then you should, proceed as you think is appropriate. But if in any way it complicates the child's life or one of the co-parents' lives, then it may be something to reevaluate doing if it's not adding to the family and to the goodness that y'all are trying to create. So there's no perfect answer for that, but I think it leaves a lot of room for thoughtful contemplation in terms of who's being served in that situation. So, Deborah, thank you for commenting. I live in a house only with my mother, with her raising 5 children. And so that makes me think, Deborah, that your mom is probably a collaborator, right? In that situation, and you can say otherwise, but I would wonder if in that situation, your mother is actually a co-parent. Of course, we know she doesn't replace the biological parent, but that's just what it is right now. And that's an example of creating the reality that you need to have. Having people assume, I don't know if those are your kids, you said 5 kids, and I'm not sure if those are yours, but you guys are creating and utilizing the resources that you need to create the reality that hopefully, and I'm sure, is the best thing that you can create for the children right now. So as we think about this idea of biological folks trying to work together to raise their kids, I want to acknowledge that this happens with great sacrifice, intention, and focus on the child's wellness. Focus on the child's wellness. That involves emotional support, economic support, which can take place financially and otherwise. That can involve informational support. That can involve what we call instrumental support, getting folks to and fro. So keep that in mind. There are a lot of ways that it can happen. But some things that I want to talk to you about are some myths and kind of truths about co-parenting to help us shape our paradigm for what healthy co-parenting can look like. As I share these things, I want to acknowledge, as a professional and as a co-parent, I have stumbled all along the way. I have stumbled, like 2 days ago, I made a big stumble, right? So perfection does not exist. We are just thinking about how we can create what we want, knowing that there will be some tricky situations. So let me tell you about these truths. Hey, Tiffany. So let's talk about some realities about co-parenting. First, let me tell you what co-parenting is not, and then I'll tell you a counterpoint into what co-parenting is. Co-parenting does not involve dictating what the other parent is going to do when they are with the child. Even if you have a parenting plan is a legal document that's been approved by usually a formal legal entity like a judge, and kind of guides the scheduling of and who's responsible for what financially with a co-parenting situation. But we have to know that co-parenting does not involve me telling you what to do. That means that if I sign a child up for an activity just because I think it's a good idea, that does not mean you are required to take the child. You know? The reality is that co-parenting, as you see here, involves respecting that the other person will make the decisions best for the child. Now, if we collaborate on said activity, be it skating, be it volleyball, be it horseback riding, whatever, be it play dates, then that's awesome. But just because I said it's a good idea does not mean that it's going to work for you, right? Just because I think that you should take our son to get his haircut doesn't mean that you actually should. Hopefully we can talk about it versus me telling you that that's what's going to happen. And that can be tricky because, we can be committed to ideas. I think I got great ideas, but that doesn't mean my co-parent always believes in them in the same way. So co-parenting is respecting the other parent's role, even when there's a disagreement. I still respect your role. Co-parenting does not mean we're going to parent the same way. The things that I value may not be the things that you value in your household. I might think it's important that she eats macaroni and cheese 3 times a week. You may be a vegan, right? So you know what happens? Our children learn to adapt. So the second point about co-parenting is that we can trust the other parent to love the child equally, even though they are different. And even though they are loving the child differently. That is okay. Of course, right? The more similarities, the better. If we've decided that our child isn't going to start dating until, they're 16, cool. That helps our child know how to move. But if you change your mind and you let them go out, at 15 and a half on a daytime date to the park, you have the prerogative to do that. Hopefully we can talk about it. But I don't get to dictate what you do. So we might not always agree. Sometimes the third thing I want to highlight is that sometimes co-parenting is a lopsided process. And you know what? As is parenting, right? I mean, if you've seen any parenting dynamic, you know that sometimes one parent during different seasons of the if they're married, during different seasons of the marriage or different seasons of the child's life, sometimes one parent carries a heavier load, and that same thing can happen in co-parenting for any number of reasons. Maybe the other parent works a lot. Maybe one of the parents is better with homework. Maybe one of the parents is the coach of the team, and so they end up just spending more time with the child. Co-parenting is not always going to be 50-50, and in some cases, I will offer you, it doesn't need to be. So I encourage every family to think about what the needs are for their particular system. I would love for you guys to share some feedback about your experiences about when co-parenting may not be 50-50. There are like endless reasons that might not happen. But if it's lopsided and if you've experienced it or you've seen other people experience it, feel free to share some examples, because the more we share our stories, the less isolated we may feel. That's another reason that I'm talking about co-parenting, because it's not a term that we use a lot, particularly in the Black community. Another point is that co-parenting can be impacted, and don't throw anything at me for this one, but co-parenting can be impacted by finances, but doesn't necessarily need to be dictated by finances and financial contributions. I know that's a sensitive area, and it should be, because money is real and children are expensive. But each parent offers more, or has the opportunity to offer more than that financial contribution. So it's impacted by financial contributions, but I would offer that it shouldn't be dictated by financial contributions. Parenting is a process. And for whatever reason, you and that other person were given the opportunity and the responsibility to cultivate this beautiful soul. And there may be points in that season where things get tricky financially. But no, there are other resources that can be offered in terms of time, in terms of ideas, in terms of logistics that may offset some of that financial impact. So just something to think about. I know it's sensitive because money is real and things are expensive, but nothing can really replace the role that that person has the opportunity to offer in your child's life. So I want to acknowledge that the final point is that co-parenting, like I said earlier, is the final point of these truths, is that co-parenting is not actually for everyone. I just want to reiterate that, but it is possible. And keep in mind that our children aren't always going to be 3. They're not always going to be 7. These jokers are going to grow up and hopefully grow out to be independent people making their amazing contribution to this world and hopefully, taking care of us when we're old. So your relationship will naturally change because your children are going to change. So keep that in mind. What I like to remind myself and other people is that we are creating the story, though, of their childhood. The way that we communicate with the other parent in their life, whether they're officially co-parenting or not, the way that we reference them, the way that we talk about that person to other family members, that's the narrative of our children's lives. And we have the power and the responsibility to hopefully make a positive impact on that. So how can we do that, right? Let me give you some strategies that are helpful. And I'm going to pose these strategies in the form of questions, things to ask yourself. Number 1, ask yourself, when you think of your co-parent, are you thinking of them from the perspective of your ex-spouse, your ex-boyfriend, your ex-sex partner? Or are you thinking about them as your child's parent? I would offer these are 2 different people. I would offer that the way that your ex treats you may be different from how they treat your child. Your ex-wife, your ex-husband, your ex-sex partner, however y'all got down, we're creating that beautiful soul. We do not want to assume, we don't benefit from assuming, and our child doesn't benefit from assuming that how they treat the child is going to be a parallel to how they treated us. So let's be clear that if we look at them as the parenting partner versus our ex, we may be able to gradually change our paradigm and see more of their value than we do if they're our ex, because they're our ex for a reason. So that should be clear to us. But if we can step back and remove gradually over time some of the emotional commitment and ties, we can see what they're adding to the child. And I'm not always saying that what they're adding is good, but I'm inclined to think it's oftentimes a different process than what they were doing in the context of the romantic or the sexual relationship. With that in mind, that's one question you want to ask yourself. There's also another question to ask, and this relates to communication, which is fundamental to any healthy relationship, but particularly when you're in a relationship with another human that outside of that child, you would choose to probably not be in a relationship with. And when I say relationship, I mean a co-parenting relationship. So you or somebody you know may be in a relationship with someone where if it were up to you or that person, they would never have spoken to them again. That's the reality after you break up. You need space. People don't want to deal with each other. But when you have a child, it's encouraged. So in your communication process with the other person, the other parent, you want to think about, are you an escalator or are you a neutralizer? Are you the person who in that back and forth communication, you're taking things to another level that maybe makes it worse? Or are you a neutralizer? If you have been both, then I am with you, because I have been both. I am not here to say that I don't take things to the next level. I can go there. I'm not saying that's good, but I am here to say it's a human experience. And if we label it, we can kind of accept what it is. So what are these things? Neutralizer, escalator, what are we talking about? So An escalator is a person who, in a conversation, believes that their perspective is the only perspective. They put their emotional needs above others. They struggle to manage stress. And they may engage in either or thinking. Like either you do it or you don't. You showed up yesterday, you didn't show up yesterday, so see, you never show up, right? They use words that I call like absolute words, like always or never, right? That's an escalator style of communication. And that's how we should think about it, a style of communication. You never pay attention. You never get the homework done. You never are on time. You never pay the money. You don't make any financial contribution. These are escalator types of phrases. Okay? Again, also keeping in mind that the escalator may think that their ideas are always the best ones. The neutralizer is more likely to recognize when they're becoming a bit emotional and kind of able to self-regulate that and kind of calm down, like, oh, we're about to go there. It's spiraling. All right, let me realize that. The neutralizer is one who realizes, you know what, maybe we should end this conversation now because it's no longer being productive. This is the person who may use terms more like, well, it's possible that we can do this. Or I should be able to have that to you by Thursday. It'll be tight, but maybe I can do that, right? The neutralizer is more likely to leave space, or that style of communication leaves space for possibility. There's flexibility there. I want to just reiterate that in any relationship, these two people can exist, and these two people can be you or me on any given day. The goal is to naturally work towards something that's a healthier style of communication without feeling like you're taking abuse from the other person. So you can create those boundaries with time and with practice that help that other person know that you're not going to engage in that. And those are skills that can generalize to a lot of different relationships. So I'm wondering, what does it mean to you guys when you see, for a young person, to see escalation, patterns of chronic escalation, versus what are they learning, right? This can also involve situations where there's a refusal to allow contact between a child and a parent due to a parent's belief that the other child is doing something wrong, even though that hasn't been totally identified yet. So just think about what that means. What can a child learn from escalators? But more importantly, what can they learn from neutralizers or from a neutralizing style of communication? Okay. The other tip is to, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I might not have mentioned it, but I definitely thought about it. Try to see what it's like to see your child, your other partner, your parent, from your child's perspective. Easier said than done. Easier said than done, right? You may see inconsistency. It's possible that the child sees that they showed up, the other parent showed up. You may see something that seems like it's a lie, maybe, based on your experience. Your child may see hope and possibility. You may see time wasted. Your child may see opportunities and experiences and time gained. You may see too much pizza and not enough home cooking. Your child sees special nights with some gooey food and is making these memories. I'm not saying that we should operate from a child's perspective, but I would offer that we can gain some insight if we get into their world and give ourselves the opportunity to at least see what they see. I think there's a lot of possibility there. The final tip is to ask yourself if you can disagree with your co-parent or the other parent and still work collaboratively with that person. Can we disagree about private school versus public school and still work collaboratively? Can we disagree about, when to start getting the nails done and still collaborate? The reality is that in parenting, whether you are married or not, the opportunities for disagreement are endless. there's a lot of decisions to be made about these little people. Goodness, the decisions are endless. So we should anticipate that we will disagree. But the overall goal of raising our healthy, thriving, vibrant, confident, spirited, loving child can be there constantly. We disagree on this, but I would venture to say we can agree that we want them to be healthy and thriving. That might seem a little bit aspirational, but I would offer, why not? Yes, these are our little people. Why not aspire for greatness and recognize that we will, stumble along the way, and we will get up and we will keep going. And in doing so, we show them how to do the exact same thing with people that they love now or people that they may love in the future. Oftentimes, outside of grandparent dynamics and grandparent couples, the biological parents are going to be the first opportunity that children see to love someone else in a romantic way. And if that doesn't exist, in the case of co-parenting, in a collaborative way. So I'm not saying they have to love each other, but the collaboration can go a long way in teaching our children how to survive in this world. But as I wrap up those points, I want to acknowledge, I said it before earlier, perfection does not exist. I also want to acknowledge this concept that I share a lot that says life is long and wide. Research shows that co-parents or people who separate at the beginning of that separation naturally will struggle. By years 5 to 7, usually relationships have stabilized in most typically developing adults, right? Outside of abuse, outside of neglect, outside of substance use, those things to the side. Typically developing adults will be able to get to a place of peace and have appropriate relationships with each other for the sake of their child. Unfortunately, in the Black community, we don't know a lot of those stories. We don't. And I'm here to suggest that we should talk about that possibility more. And even if it's not perfect, even if they don't just doesn't manifest into this perfect picture, again, and that's not realistic, we can tell stories in a way that speak to the truths that exist outside of either being a single parent or being a married parent if you fall in that gray area. In doing so, we can think about what family expansion looks like. I see Lee's question of when should children be introduced to the parent's romantic partner? That's a critical question. What would be the intention? If you want to introduce the child to your child, what do you intend to do with that? Are you intending to expand your family? Are you intending to create a simpler life so the child doesn't have to wonder where you are when you go out at night? Are you intending to have transparent communication and show the child what it means to actually date another person? My biggest answer to that question would be that it depends on what your intention is. Fundamentally, I've learned that it's actually a good thing for kids to see what dating looks like. They kind of don't have many examples of that. So if you're going to be single and with a kid, you might be able to tell them that you're dating and talk to them about what that means. Tiffany, I like your point. We should talk about the possibilities more and make it more of the rule, not the expectation, right? I think that's true. Thank you for saying that, Tiffany, because we know that that's not talked about as a norm, though it may be happening more than we give it credit for, assuming that 50-50 isn't the requirement. So the more we talk about it, the more we can kind of change the cultural narrative for our communities, for our families, and for our children. I'm so thankful that Coach BJ has invited me to share some of my experience personally as well as clinically. I am also involved in research to capture some of these stories about co-parenting. Not necessarily perfect stories, but real stories. We have the opportunity to help our children understand the complex realities of worlds and relationships. And I hope that I can recruit people to join me in telling these stories through this information that you see here, which is the Co-Parenting in African American Families Research Study. In this work, we're going to be meeting as groups of parents, and we're going to be talking about co-parenting realities and possibilities and strategies so that we can clarify the narrative that exists for parents who are parenting in a range of ways. So please, If you have any information that you can share, if you want to contribute, if you know someone else whose story needs to be told, for better or worse, please contact me or have them contact me. You can reach me at cgrange@clayton.edu. The information is there. You can also call 678-466-4732. You can follow me at the Fern Center on Instagram. There's also a newly developed Facebook page dedicated to Black families who are co-parenting, called Co-Parenting in African American Families. So, and there's also, those are the resources available. I am promoting the hashtag Black People Co-Parent. So, excuse me. Yes, Black People Co-Parent. So keep that in mind. Had a little moment there. So thank you so much. I appreciate you, Benita. I think you're going to be coming back on, and thank you for rolling that information at the bottom there. And feel free to contact me if you want to learn more about co-parenting. It is a beautiful opportunity to grow, and I hope that you all take good care as you're on your independent journeys.
Awesome. Dr. Christina Grange, thank you so much for sharing this information. I've just been in the background, just enjoying it, and even looking at all of the various comments. There's been so many comments that's been made. Even Don just did.
Thank you, Don. Thank you. I had a little moment. Thank you, Don. This is what I mean. Community is a beautiful thing. Yes.
That's right. That's right.
Black people co-parent. Yes.
Absolutely. And so this was just a great conversation. As I said, at the start, again, this is just one of these topics that we rarely talk about in our community, just rarely talked about in general. A lot of people just are thrown into co-parenting, and they don't have any guidance, any tools, anything, and they just kind of deal with it by themselves. And maybe they don't have that support and no one else around them to be able to share this information. So that's why I said, even if this is a topic that doesn't impact you, please just share this live with someone, because again, you never know when someone may come to you and say, hey, I need to, some advice about this particular subject. So we want to be able to help anyone, even if it doesn't impact us. And Lakeitha said, thanks for sharing the information. Like I said, this was a great topic. Had a lot of, comments, out here. So again, I just want to thank everybody for joining. As you guys know, I will have my April topics coming out. There's going to be some great information for April. So just look out for those advertisements on my social media. Follow me on _Coach BJ on YouTube, and then my Facebook page, The Source of Hope, at The Source of Hope 1 on Facebook. And again, I'm _Coach BJ on all of my platforms. You can see on my website all of the talks, all of the advertisement, everything that's coming up for the month of April. So again, Dr. Christina Grange, I just want to thank you again for being in here and really sharing those thoughtful, very detailed, simple, but very powerful, tips and tools that you provided, for the viewers watching today and for all of us. So we just appreciate you so much. And, Tiffany is like, yes. And, Don is like, awesome. And, Lee is calling for a part 2 for encore.
Well, I'm just glad to be here. It's very generous of you to open up this space. It takes work. I know you're a busy woman. You have great things going on. So thank you for creating a space for us to gather and discuss topics that might not otherwise be as thoroughly explored. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And does anyone have any other questions or comments before we close out for this evening and give you guys your evening back? Again, we just thank you so much for watching, your support, and your comments and questions that you provided tonight. So if there's not any other questions, again, if you would like to connect with Christina on the volunteer opportunity and the study that she's doing, like I said, you have the information up there. Feel free to reach out to me. I can definitely connect you guys. If you know anyone else who can benefit from that study, please, again, reach out to me or reach out to Christina directly. And like I said, we will go ahead and connect you guys, or just a support on the topic. Again, just a support beyond this talk. She already advised me that she's willing to definitely connect and support you guys in the space. Absolutely, just reach out. Let me see. I think I'm just looking at more comments coming up. Oh, how does a new stepmom connect with mom? As a
That's an important
question
question.
that can be a good,
The cliffhanger.
next time. So that's the cliffhanger for next time, potentially. Tiffany said, thank you for this. We appreciate you both for opening up this avenue for conversation. You're very welcome. Absolutely. This is what it's all about. Like I said, we're here to serve. Lisa said, wonderful. Definitely information as well. So again, we just thank you guys for watching. And again, just keep a lookout for the topics for the month of April. And if you want to connect, definitely you know how to get in contact with me. So you guys have a great evening, and we love you guys and have a great night. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much, y'all.